For my experience, I think that the coaches at Sports House don't treat us as fair as the boys sometimes. I don't know why they would do that, but for some reason they do. And we have been playing football lately, and the coaches would only pass to the boys, and I was like wide open. And I went up to the coach and I said, "Hey, I was wide open." And he said, "Everybody was open." And so I was just kind of like, okay, you know what? I give up. And he kept passing the boys, and I was just like, I'm not one of those people who quits and gives up. I'm going to go back at him and tell him this is not okay. So I marched up to him, and in my biggest tone, I said, you know what? This isn't okay. Why don't you pass to the girls? Pass to me next. I'm wide open, I can catch a football, and I'm good at it. So come on, people. So the next play he passed to me, and I caught it, and I ran. It was a short run, but it was good, and I don't know how he felt after it. Maybe he was proud, maybe he was just disappointed that I couldn't run farther because people were kind of like around me when he threw it to me. And then he passed it to Megan, who caught it, and that was good too because, well, he passed it to us, but we had to tell him to pass it to us. So I don't understand why he wouldn't just pass it to us in the first place.
I think the coaches at Sports House treat the girls differently than they treat the boys, and they act like we don't like playing sports as much as the boys do. And like I think girls like playing sports as much as boys do, but just like personally, I don't like when it gets so rough. And then like, because the boys like hit each other and they like push each other around, and I don't like that, so I don't always want to participate in games where I could get hurt. And so I think they act like we don't like playing sports, even though I think some of the girls in our class do. And they treat them like they treat us like we're like not as strong as the boys and not as like capable.
Mural teams, so we played each other in small teams within the school, as well as going to other schools. And the girls and boys were really treated equally and got the same amount of money spent on their sports. When I came to my senior year in high school in the United States, it was very different. This was a long time ago, and things have changed because they didn't have the rules that they have now. But the girls wouldn't even take part in PE, and the boys, of course, had leather sweaters, and they had traveling teams, and they had big tournaments and all that sort of thing, and there was nothing like that for the girls. Now that was back in the late 1960s, so it's a different perspective than you might get today.
There are a lot of things I want people to know about abuse towards women. I think a really big one is just how prevalent it is, and with sexual assault alone, not just assault in general, there are almost 300,000 in the U.S. every year. And I think a really massive part of this issue is educating men who are typically the perpetrators of these crimes about what is unacceptable, and teaching them more about respecting women and respecting boundaries, and that there is no excuse for an act of violence unless it's in self-defense, which does not qualify as sexual assault ever. that's me getting off topic a little. But also, I think how important it is that legally this issue be pushed forward, because 98% of rapists never even spend a day in jail. And that's an insane statistic, because it's dealing with the issue of, one, a lot of these cases aren't going anywhere, and two, a lot of these aren't even ever reported or brought to trial. With such a serious crime that is so damaging towards the victims, that's a massive problem, and something that needs immense progress quickly and drastically.
Help girls or women have a better education, or to help them in education would depend, for me, primarily on what group of women we're talking to. So, for example, would it be different ethnicities, minority groups, majority groups? I would say my experience and my education as a young white woman has gone pretty well. I think that women have made great strides over the past decade in terms of accomplishing so much more in education, getting a lot farther in education. I think it was in 2005 where women surpassed men in terms of the number of doctorates that women received, which is amazing. I do think, however, in terms of women in education, the biggest thing that women still have to fight today, even though it's a more traditional idea, is the fact that a lot of women don't pursue higher degrees of education because a lot of women think that they need to stay in the home, or society deems that they should be staying at the home and taking care of their children rather than pursuing a higher career. And even though it's sort of an outdated tradition, I think there's still remnants of that in today's society. Whether it's coming from the companies that you work in, or from the women themselves or the families. So that would be my hope right now, is that we can push past that and move past these traditional rules of women staying in the home, so that they can continue their education, continue their careers.
Okay. So, girls in education, is there anything that we need to change, or is everything looking excellent? So, in my opinion, ideally, we wouldn't be in a position where we would have differentiation of gender and gender roles, and how we treat girls and boys differently. And I think from both perspectives, I think that is something that is very important to look at. I know that there are a tremendous amount of studies that have been done that show the different ways that girls and boys think, that the girls and boys do different things, and because of those studies, I think we have done, we have in society, as well as in our heads, decided that girls are not good at math, they're not good at science, they're not good at technology, and I think that once those biases have gone away and are transparent, like that we're transparent that those things have gone away, I think we'll be able to achieve a lot more in terms of just raising the bar and being able to kind of play on an even field.
So when it comes to Photoshop and beauty, I've seen a lot of kind of different interesting images that have been altered. And I don't know, there was one video that I've seen that really stands out where they took a woman who I thought, she was in a swimsuit and I thought she was very attractive, and they showed you all the Photoshop editing that they did. And by the end of it, she looked more like a Barbie doll than a human. And so with Photoshop, it's interesting because my roommate is a designer and I see her use Photoshop often. And she's got like a t-shirt company, so she'll do some editing there, and it's been interesting to see kind of what you can do, but I think when it comes to altering the way people look, that it can really distort people's understanding of what like natural beauty is. More flawless or don't have kind of just natural elements, they seem kind of more plastic than real. And so I don't know if that's my opinion then on Photoshop is it can make certain images look really interesting, but when you really start kind of doctoring the way people look naturally, it's kind of takes away from little things like that make people interesting to look at. I don't know, it might be a gap in a smile or freckles or anything like that can really be beautiful, but I think so often we see them erased in Photoshop.